Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Selling Greenville, your favorite real estate podcast here in Greenville, South Carolina. I'm your host, as always, Stan McCune, realtor right here in Greenville, South Carolina. You can find all of my contact information in the show notes. If you need to reach out to me for any of your Greenville or even outside of Greenville real estate needs, I can't help you outside of the Greenville, Spartanburg, Anderson, greater Greenville area, except that I've got a relocations department with my company, so I can help you there. Also, if you're a realtor, you need some help, you're not really sure where your career is going, I'm your guy. I have a team. I can bring you onto my team. And one of my passions right now is mentorship. That's something I would really like to get more into. And so I would love to have a few people under my wing that I could mentor, that I could help ultimately become a better realtor than me. That would be the goal. So just let me know. I know there's some realtors that watch and or listen to this show. So just keep that in mind. Maybe not you, but maybe someone that you know would be a good fit for that. It's late at night. I'm going to do my best here. I'm recording this at 10 p.m. I'm tired. It's this is Monday, the final Monday of March, the final day of the first quarter of 2025. And needless to say, this is frequently the busy time of year, and it is a very busy time of year. There's just a whole lot going on right now. I'm having, my phone is constantly blowing up. This is the time of year where I work through meals, where when I go to the gym to work out, I'm negotiating with realtors while I'm, in between sets at the gym. Like, that's just the way things are pretty much every year this time of year. If they're not that way, then that's a real big problem. I've had a few springs early in my career that weren't that way, and it was like, oh boy, what's going to happen? But here we go. I should start calling this show Selling Greenville After Dark, because I keep having to record nighttime episodes, which I really don't like to do, because there's a certain level of energy, right, that you have to bring when you're just talking solo to a camera, and that messes up my sleep schedule, I've learned. So I am messing up my sleep schedule to get you guys content, and I hope you guys appreciate that. Hopefully this will be the last nighttime episode, because part of the reason why I'm having to do this is because we've been having various construction projects done on our house. That's done during the day. During the normal times, I'd be recording, so it's been pushing a lot of these episodes at night. But I'm still going to keep bringing you guys content no matter what. Even when I'm traveling, I bring you guys content. Hopefully you enjoy it. Now, I try to keep this podcast really focused on Greenville, but sometimes, especially last year, there are things that happen in the broader real estate industry that I feel like are worth discussing on this show. And as I already said, the past year, there's been a lot of big changes in the real estate industry. We figured there would be some more coming up this year. And a new one did, in fact, get announced last week by the National Association of Realtors. And I want to talk about that. But we need to back up for 1 second and provide some context for what's actually happening. Okay, there is a policy with the National Association of Realtors that every realtor has to follow that's called the Clear Cooperation Policy. Okay, we'll just call it Clear Cooperation. It's also called CCP sometimes, or abbreviated as that. I don't like that, because for some people that means the Chinese Communist Party. And so I prefer not to use that abbreviation. But clear cooperation, what does it mean? It's really not clear based on the name. But in short, it means that once a realtor gets a new listing, okay, a client that is selling a house and they've signed a listing agreement, within 1 day of getting that listing agreement must be entered into the multiple listing service, aka the MLS, which then pushes out, or the proper terminology is it syndicates that listing out to all the websites that have what's called an IDX feed. However, there is one exception to this rule, that every listing needs to be entered into the MLS within 1 business day of a signed listing agreement. That exception traditionally has been that there is brokerage exclusive or office exclusive listings, meaning that you can have a realtor list a home only within their office. They can only market it within their office, within their brokerage, and they can't do any other public marketing. No websites, no multiple listing service, no yard signs, no social media posts, nothing. Okay. Only within their office. That's the only way that they can market it if it's a brokerage or an office exclusive listing. So we got two options, right? You either have to list and pretty much immediately put it in the MLS, or you can list it off MLS and now it can only be marketed pretty much via email. Maybe some brokerages have some other ways of doing it, but it can only be marketed to other agents within the company that brokerage exclusive listing is listed by. Okay? Hopefully that makes sense. Now, the question might be asked, why would anyone accept a brokerage exclusive listing? Okay, why would any seller want to limit their marketing, right? Instead of sending it out to literally everyone in the world to be able to see it, why would they restrict it to, my office has several hundred realtors. Some offices only have a couple of realtors, just a handful of them. So regardless of whether the brokerage has 5 realtors or 500 realtors, the question must be asked, why would a seller want to not get full public exposure? Well, there's a few reasons that we typically see. One is if a house is a really, really high-end, luxury listing where the seller just doesn't want people to see what it looks like on the inside, what it has on the inside. They like privacy. This is especially true of celebrities. When celebrities sell homes, they want to be private. Oftentimes, they don't want people to see all of their stuff. And so this is a good example of of where we can have brokerage exclusive listings that are beneficial to the seller, particularly within companies that tend to focus on luxury listings, right? Which is my company. There's a handful of companies in the upstate of South Carolina that luxury listings are one of the core things that we do, and that could be a good example of where a brokerage exclusive listing could make sense, right? Because you're keeping it off of the public, out of the public sphere, and you are marketing it only to a handful of agents that focus on luxury listings. Okay, makes sense, right? Another one, fixer uppers. Okay, and I have done many of these over the years. Fixer uppers can be great options for doing brokerage exclusive because if you have an office that has competent, capable realtors in it, that's helpful when you've got a challenging listing, like one that needs work to be done on it, one that has termite damage or has all sorts of deferred maintenance. We see a lot of these homes that have been inherited, that were lived in, basically not touched by the person who passed away, an elderly person who passed away, untouched for decades. Once they pass away, children come in, they clean it out, and they realize, wow, we might need to put $80,000 to $100,000 into this house. No, thank you. We're just going to list it as is. That can be a great option for going brokerage exclusive if the brokerage has agents in their office that are experienced with fixer uppers, because a lot of agents will not be experienced in it, right? And I've run into this many, many times where you get these agents that are trying to help out a client that wants to buy a fixer upper, and the agent is just overwhelmed. They think every single thing is a problem. They're trying to renegotiate every single thing because they don't understand that this little structural issue really isn't that big of a deal, that this termite damage isn't that big of a deal. They don't pay attention during, they don't have a detailed eye while they're showing the house, so they miss things that they should have seen. There's just all sorts of things there. So that could be a great option as well. And then another option, and there's probably more, but I'm just going to focus on these 3. The other one that makes sense for brokerage exclusive is listings that are still getting ready for public marketing. Maybe they're decluttering, maybe they're cleaning, maybe they're doing some repairs, but they're okay with people walking through the house before they're ready for public marketing. So it's almost like a coming soon option, but a coming soon option that is actually legal because the National Association of Realtors doesn't allow true coming soons. And if you ever see those, it is illegal. That's the for sale by owner situation. But this is a way to kind of do it. You can list a home brokerage exclusive, so nobody on the MLS sees it. And the sellers are getting the house ready for public marketing. If it doesn't sell during the brokerage exclusive listing period, then during that time period, they will have gotten the house ready for marketing. Now, the listing agent can come in, take professional photography, or if they're not a good agent, take pictures with their phone or with their own camera, instead of hiring a professional photographer like a good agent should. And then they will then list it on the MLS as a finished, completed, pretty listing. Okay? Okay. So I just wanted to make sure that we had all of that in the background. And of course, sellers can always sell for sale by owner, right? But if they want to list, and if you sell for sale by owner, there's no rules about any of this stuff. But if you want to list with a realtor, there are rules. There are only traditionally two options that are legal for a realtor, and those are the brokerage exclusive or on MLS, which means online and on all of the other websites. That's what clear cooperation is. Okay? But clear cooperation has been heavily criticized by some in recent months, right? We had this whole National Association of Realtors lawsuit that was lost last year, and there's a whole bunch of repercussions that came out of that. And as a result, a lot of people have been questioning a lot of different things with regard to what the National Association of Realtors is doing or should doing, or what exactly the future of the multiple listing service even is. And the main critics of clear cooperation are those who don't want to pay their dues to the Realtor Association and the multiple listing service and feel like the MLS system is just too closed of a system and prevents realtors from just marketing a property how they want. But the counter argument is that without clear cooperation, a lot of the realtor code of ethics goes away. The code of ethics that prevents realtors from being shysty. And guess what? Realtors already are shysty even with the code of ethics. So imagine if we didn't have a code of ethics and there were basically no rules, a lot of shysty behavior would happen. So with regard to clear cooperation policy specifically, if I can just pick and choose who I market a property to, right? Let's say that I don't have to market it to my office. I don't have to put it on the multiple listing service. I can just do whatever I want with it. I can just call my friends. I can just call a handful of other agents. I can do this or that. That actually presents, that might sound on surface level like, okay, well, what's the problem with that? The problem is that why wouldn't I choose the people that I identify with to be the people that I market the property to? Or let's say I have a listing near my house. This is a common thing for realtors, right? A lot of realtors will list homes that are near their own home because they get to know their neighbors and neighbors like them. And you know, there's an agent in my office that's like the Orchard Farms agent. Like that's where she lives. And she has had an incredible run of listing homes in the Orchard Farms neighborhood, and good for her, right? But what if I had a listing in my neighborhood and I really wanted a certain person to be living there? I'm a Christian. What if I only wanted another Christian to be near me? Or what if I were Muslim? I only wanted to market the property to a fellow Muslim. Or I'm heterosexual. What if I want to specifically have that? Or what if I were homosexual and I only wanted to market to people that were also homosexual, right? If those sound like fair housing violations, it's because they are. All of those scenarios are fair housing violations. And so this is one of the major problems with taking away clear cooperation, is that it opens the door to abuses of fair housing, specifically steering certain people groups to or from certain properties, right? And that is illegal for good reason, right? It's great, you know, people love the idea of being in a community surrounded by a bunch of people that are just like them, but they don't like it when that means that they're excluded from a community that they want to join, right? And so that's why fair housing exists. It might seem restrictive to some people in some situations. And I understand, you know, I've had a lot of Christians clients over the years that their home is like a sacred, kind of to them, a sacred space, and they really want a certain type of person to move in there. And unfortunately, there's not just laws for realtors, there's also laws for home sellers that you can't discriminate in that way. But if clear cooperation went away, if you could just market a home however you wanted, the potential for abuse would be tremendous. Now, the NAR has been looking into this clear cooperation policy to try to appease these members that are not happy. And as a result, they came up with a third option, right? We've talked about the two options, brokerage exclusive or on MLS and syndicated out to all the websites like Zillow, like Realtor.com, like Redfin. They've come up with a third option now that is still compliant with clear cooperation. Unfortunately, they are confusingly calling it a delayed marketing exempt listing. Okay, I hate that. But it's a really simple concept. Okay, so I'm going to explain it to you guys and we'll talk about it for a sec. The policy allows for listings to be marketed on MLS, but not syndicated out to other websites until a set period of time passes. So only members of the multiple listing service, specifically realtors, there can be other members of the MLS like appraisers and whatnot, but mainly realtors make up the largest portion of membership of the MLS. Realtors and their clients who are set up for MLS searches would be the only ones able to see these listings. So you would not find these listings until that set period of time is over for the listing to be exempt from syndication. You would not find these listings on Zillow, Redfin, Realtor.com, etc., etc. They would not show up until the period has passed by which then it has to go in to the multiple listing service, okay? Now here's the interesting part of it. If that sounds kind of similar to the brokerage exclusive option, it's actually a lot more similar to the traditional way of listing a home because an agent can still market the property in any way that they want. They can still market the property on their own website, on their company's website. They can use yard signs. They can do social media blasts. They can do everything. It's just not going to be syndicated out to Zillow. I guess in theory you could go on Zillow and create a listing on there if you really wanted to, but that would defeat the whole purpose, right? The whole idea here is to keep it off of those websites. So it's kind of a middle ground between the brokerage exclusive listing, which only allows internal marketing of a listing within a brokerage or an office, and absolutely no other form of marketing. And you kind of morph that with a standard listing that's in the MLS, but then gets syndicated out to all the other websites. This third option is kind of in between the two of those, right? Now, who will benefit from this? Well, when I first heard it, I really didn't think anyone would use it. But then I started thinking through it, and I thought through some cases where I think it actually could be useful. And some of these we've already discussed. For instance, the luxury listings and fixer-uppers are good examples for properties that could benefit and sellers that could benefit from this third option, right? Luxury listings, in particular, for that privacy aspect of not just putting it out there for everyone to see, right? You still get full MLS exposure, but you're not getting exposure to all these other websites that literally anyone in the world can access, okay? So if you're a celebrity or if you're a multimillionaire, you want to keep that mansion away from certain eyes, hey, you now have an option that you can list it completely on the MLS and have every single realtor in your area have access to it, and their clients that are set up with MLS searches also have access to it without the nosy neighbor who is not looking at homes and does not need to know what your home looks like, being able to just pull it up on Zillow, right? Fixer-uppers, as well, as I've already mentioned, might be an option. I still like the brokerage exclusive option for a lot of fixer-uppers, but I could see this also being an interesting option for fixer-uppers too, because a lot of people, again, because one of my specialties is investing, real estate investments. That's basically how I got into this business. I've listed a lot of fixer-uppers over the years. Like that's just been something that has been a core part of my business over the years. And long story short, when you list a fixer-upper, you get every possible call from every possible type of person interested in the home. And the vast majority of these people, they don't have an agent. They don't know how to buy a fixer-upper. They don't have the money for it. They want to know if you're renting it out. It's very, very frustrating. And so this could be good option for some of those as well, right? If a seller doesn't want to go brokerage exclusive, but it also doesn't make sense to just blast it out everywhere on the web and have a bunch of people that aren't going to take it seriously, right? Aren't going to actually purchase the home. That's an option that I could see like really working well. I've also had clients that didn't fall into either of those categories, the luxury listing and the fixer-upper listings, but they just wanted privacy with regard to their listing, right? For whatever reason, scared of the neighbors seeing it, whatever. Could be a great option for them as well. Also, maybe down the road, it becomes standard to list your home exempt from syndication to start. That way, it's marketed only to real estate professionals and their clients to begin with, as opposed to, again, all these potential bad prospects just scouring the internet without an agent. And then if it doesn't sell that way within a week or a few weeks or whatever, then it goes out to Zillow, Redfin, Realtor.com, etc., and gets syndicated out. What I like about this possibility is that once it goes online, it will look like a fresh listing, even though it's already had multiple weeks of activity and potentially even feedback from having been on the multiple listing service. So a savvy listing agent could potentially take advantage of that feedback, that period of time where it wasn't syndicated out to the websites, in order to make some subtle changes to the listing or to encourage, of course, with the seller's permission, or to encourage the seller to make changes based on the feedback that they received before then syndicating it out to the big websites. And maybe not even just subtle changes, maybe big changes, right? Like maybe one of the core feedbacks you get is that everyone thinks the home is overpriced. And so before it syndicates out, you reduce the price. And again, anyone looking on these websites, once it finally goes out to Zillow, etc., they're not going to see that there was a price change because it's going out onto those websites after it's already been on the multiple listing service for a few weeks. You're not going to see the history unless you look at it in the multiple listing service. Okay, again, all of this, I'm just speculating on what I think could be useful practices of this new option. But at the end of the day, one very, very core thing that we don't know at the moment is how long the exempt period will even be allowed for in Greenville. The National Association of Realtors, the NAR, they made it clear that the delayed marketing exempt period needs to have a set amount of time before the listing automatically gets syndicated. And they are telling local associations to make the call on how long that will be, whether it's a few days, a few weeks, a few months, etc. Now, some of you may know, I am on the board of directors with the Greater Greenville Association of Realtors, but no, we have not discussed this, and I have no idea where the board is going to fall on it. And even if I did, I wouldn't be able to tell you because of confidentiality purposes. So no, I don't know. But I imagine that when we have that discussion, it'll be a pretty opinionated and perhaps even heated discussion, okay? We've got some pretty opinionated people on the board. I love all of them. And there's going to be a lot of opinions talking about this. It might go to MLS committee first. Maybe they will make a recommendation. I don't know. I'm not exactly sure how all of that is going to work. We'll just wait and see. But if you have a specific opinion on how long you think the time period should be, let me know, right? Because I'm a voice on that board. I'm one of the votes. I'm one of the opinions. And if I get feedback from you guys, whether you're realtors, whether you're potential buyers or potential sellers, that I would like to hear from you guys. So let me know. Again, my contact info is in the show notes. And I'm not going to wrap up the show just yet, in case you thought that that was the cue that I'm ending the show. I'm not, because I had this entitled with perhaps a little bit of a clickbaitish title, but it's not. I'm talking about, or I presume that I'm going to entitle this something about the death of Zillow, right? And one of the things that stands out to me the most when I think about this is that if delayed marketing exempt listings ever gain traction, websites like Zillow, Realtor.com, Redfin, etc., Homes.com, they're going to be hurt very, very badly if this ever gained traction in the business. Their entire business model depends on the MLS sending them listings via syndication for them to advertise. And if even 10% of listings aren't showing up on their sites, that would be a huge loss to them. How many buyers do you know? Or if you don't know of any buyers, think about in your head, how many buyers would be okay with just not having access to 10% of listings and knowing that some of those might be some of the best listings that are out there? Buyers don't want to miss any listings, particularly in this market where, I'm not going to say it's slim pickings, but it's just a challenging market for buyers to find what they're looking for. They don't want to miss out on something. I mean, I have buyers that send me for sale by owner properties that they find on Zillow or some of these other websites, and I'll show it to them if the seller will let us look at it. And so I know that buyers are wanting to see every single potential home that is out there. And if they realize they're missing out on some of these homes, they're not going to be happy. They will be forced to contact an agent to set them up with an MLS search. Now, Zillow and the other companies I've mentioned are resilient, okay? I'm not sure even if this scenario happened, that it would be the death knell to them. Probably they would find a way to survive. They've got deep pockets. They've got a lot of resources. They've got a lot of attorneys on retainer. And they might even sue the National Association of Realtors for this. I don't know. All I know is it would be a big blow to them, and it could certainly be the death knell of that entire industry, right? I can tell you this much. When syndication from the multiple listing service to all these other websites became a thing, nobody was thinking, what if Zillow becomes bigger than the entire industry, right? And now we got, Rocket Companies, which owns Rocket Mortgage. They've recently just bought out, they bought out Redfin, and they bought out Mr. Cooper, which is a massive, it's a silly name, but a massive loan servicer. So Rocket Companies now is making this big splash in the industry. This just happened the past few weeks. And so there's a lot of big players right now in the industry. And I feel like, if nothing else, this new thing that the National Association of Realtors is allowing was a shot across the bow at these companies by the National Association of Realtors. Okay. Now, some will say this new delayed marketing period isn't beneficial for sellers, but I hear a lot of sellers complain about unserious buyers going through their homes and trashing their homes and not giving feedback, all sorts of things. You know who the most unserious buyers are? They're the ones who saw a home online and just in that moment called a realtor, who's a family friend or whatever, to show it to them with no intention of really buying it, right? The real serious buyers are the ones who have been working with a realtor and are actively searching and already have a multiple listing search set up. So those are the ones that we want to see anyway. That is the market that we want to capture when we are listing a home. And this option is the best option for just capturing specifically that demographic. And if you want traffic from people without realtors, well, you can still do open houses, right? So you could still have a home listed during this delayed marketing period and still allow open houses where people who don't have an agent can come in and take a look at it if you want, right? And maybe this means open houses will make a comeback. I mean, they haven't gone away and they're still very popular, but we don't sell a whole lot of houses at open houses, right? Me personally, my entire career, I've probably sold 2 homes at open houses. I've gotten a lot of clients at open houses, but it's not, most people aren't going to an open house to make a serious play on that house. All right. And so perhaps this is the way for open houses to become a major part of the marketing process again. Who knows? All that we know right now is that more changes are coming, but these are good changes. They're not being forced on anyone. We don't like it when the NAR forces changes on us. This is just more options for sellers, and that's how the NAR is marketing it. And I think that's fine. If you don't like it, don't use it. Sellers can still list their homes the way they always have, but soon they'll have another option at their disposal. Strictly MLS only, with syndication to happen at a later time to be determined by their local association. What does it mean for Realtor.com, Zillow, Redfin, Homes.com, etc.? It's hard to say, but I can tell you they can't be happy with this, and they might need to start coming up with contingency plans to their business model to ensure that they weather the storm in the upcoming years. So I hope that was helpful for you guys. Let me know your thoughts. I don't know when this is going to be implemented. It has to be fully implemented, I believe, by September. Okay, so it might be done before then, but for sure by the fall, this will be fully implemented into the Greater Greenville Association of Realtors multiple listing service, in addition to the Spartanburg Association, in addition to Western Upstate Association, Greenwood, et cetera, et cetera. We've got a few MLSs around here. They're all going to have to implement this within the next few months. Be very interesting to see how that all plays out, which associations do it differently, and if there's anything worth talking about on here, you guys will find out before anyone else. So thank you for listening. My contact information in the show notes. Please, if you enjoyed this content, smash that like button, favorite the show, subscribe to the show, download it, all those good things. We will talk again next time.